Okay, so in our last video, in part one of picking your trademark video, we talked about the strength of the market and the types of words that can or cannot be used, and we described which ones. Um, so in part one of picking your trademark, we talked about the four categories of words and whether they can be registered as a trademark or not. We talked about descriptiveness, generic words, suggestive words, and fanciful and arbitrary words. And we talked about which ones are stronger from a trademark perspective. In this video, we are going to talk about a different set of criteria for getting a mark registered, and that has to do with other marks. So, for example, if obviously, since Apple already exists for Apple computers, you're not going to be able to register your mark as Apple for computers, even if you would like to. Obviously, you're not going to want to do that because Apple's going to come after you. But regardless, even if Apple didn't come after you, the trademark office would not let you. So, perfect segue to the two sides of this part that you have to take into account. The first one is whether you are going to be at risk of being sued for using that mark for infringement. And the second one is, will the trademark office let you use it? So even if you think the party using it is not a very strong user and they're unlikely to want to spend the money to sue, the trademark office won't let you do it, because when it comes to trademark, there are two aspects to trademark law. The first one is for the owner and the commercialization of their mark to make sure that their investment in their brand is protected and they can reap the benefits of the marketing efforts that they put in and the goodwill that they create with the consumers and the quality that their product has, so that they can prevent others from using the same thing. The second one is from the perspective of consumers to make sure that consumers are not misled and are not confused. You will want to do a search of the trademark database to see what marks have been registered or applied for. And then you also want to do a Google search, social media search, an internet search to see what other marks are being used, because they might be used and not registered. If you don't do that analysis, two things could happen. One of them is much worse than the other one, but they both have a lot of cost. So the first one is that the trademark office will not register your trademark, so your application will be denied, and you have now both lost money and time, because and potentially you have to backtrack your business. If you already started using, now you have to change your mark, change your marketing, all of that. If you haven't started using, now you have to wait another amount of time before you start using it. And then the other one that is more dangerous is that you can get your mark registered, but you didn't notice it was somebody else using the mark, especially if that other mark was not registered, but you could still get sued for it. So you might get the mark registered, start using it, and then they could invalidate your mark and sue you. And at that point, you're already much further down the road with your business and having invested money in this mark. So it can be quite uh, costly to your business. So again, you're going to want to do a trademark search from the trademark database, look at the different marks, and keep in mind the fact that it's not just the goods and services that they're currently using, but also what is within the zone of expansion. So what would a consumer think is within the zone of expansion, in the sense that is it possible that the consumers think that that same brand expanded? Like, for example, Amazon originally was only selling books, but it wasn't unimaginable for consumers to think if there was another website called Amazon selling erasers, that it might be the same one, right? Selling other goods, they might think it was the same one. So that is within the zone of expansion. But obviously, having, a restaurant called Amazon is not as directly related, so consumers are less likely to think a restaurant is within the zone of expansion of Amazon when they were selling books. Now today, when Amazon does a lot of different things, now that has become within the zone of expansion for Amazon. So again, this is another kind of subjective and analysis that requires some judgment calls, and again, lawyers can make those calls better because they see more cases. But again, if you're not hiring a lawyer and trying to do this on your own, you at least have an idea of what you're thinking about and what you're looking for. And again, it's really important to do this in advance, which is why I'm doing this video for you. So you want to think about these things before you pick your mark, so that you don't have to go back and change the mark either because it wasn't registered, or because someone is suing you for infringement. You also want to think about, like in the future, where might you expand into that might be an issue if somebody else is in that field and you can't expand. Because once you get your mark, it's, especially if your business is successful and you've put marketing investment into it, it's not easy to change that name. You lose that recognition every time you change your brand. So you also, want to reduce your risk of infringement, that somebody's going to sue you for infringement. And then the last thing is, there are also companies that will do what's called a comprehensive search. You pay them. I actually don't know if they will do it without, I'm pretty sure. I can't see why they wouldn't do it if you're not an attorney, but your attorney will have that relationship for sure. So there's a comprehensive search that you pay for. It's kind of pricey, but it will search a lot of things, and then you can and they'll have like a report that says what they found and what each one is about. So you take a look at all of those and then decide, is your mark likely to be registered, is it safe to use, and so on and so forth. As always, it is much better to consult with an attorney, but if for whatever reason you decide that you're going to do it on your own, whether because you don't think that it's going to be that big of a deal or whatever it is, at least you have some of the basics of what to think about. So yeah, good luck.